Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our July 1st council meeting. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Roll call.
Mr. Oja?
Here.
Mr. Menegini?
Here.
Dr. Hayes?
Here.
Mr. Gottstein?
Here.
Mr. Babalani?
Here.
Approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of June 17th. Any additions or corrections? Not, I'm looking for a motion to approve.
I make a motion, we approve the regular meeting notes for June 17, 2013.
Support.
Motion made by Mark, supported by Dr. Hayes. Roll call.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Gottstein?
Yes.
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes. Approval manifest 2013-13 in the amount of $371,361.47. Dr. Hayes, any questions?
No questions.
Lee?
Right off the bat here, how much money do we have left, the music in the park? I know it coming from that grant for $300 for this Bill Jamerson. Well, I believe it was a $4,000 grant. Mary, am I right on that? 3,600.
Well,
Okay.
it's 4,000, they upfront, we had an upfront of 36, and then they pay the $400 after I file the report at the end.
Okay, just under that, town and country appraisal, and then PM surveying, boundary line appraisal fee, is that for that 40, the north 40 up there?
Boundary, yes, I believe that is.
Okay,
I'll
and
double
then
check on that, though.
that seems a little high here for PM surveying, 9th Avenue right-of-way survey fee.
420?
Yeah, is that for
That was for the
selling that little chunk there?
yes, that was for the right-of-way and the remaining portion, because he just did one side at first, and then we had to do the whole thing.
Okay. And then under Department of Public Works, I guess the word banjo jumped out at me. Transmotion LLC, Din Met Banjo number 125 for $309. What is that?
I'll have to check. in on
Halfway
that.
down under Department of
Yep,
Public Works.
I'll have to check in on that one.
Okay. I think I had one other thing here, right? No, that's it.
Hey, Chris?
Nothing.
Mark?
I have a couple, Jeremy. On page 1 there, Ray, the Otis Elevator Company, did they actually work on the elevator for $2,400, or is that just the inspection?
That's inspection and certification.
Okay,
That's an annual.
okay. Page 2, down on the Recreation Department, the Steinberg toilets, they're both listed together. Same invoice, different amounts. Is there more toilets in one spot? Because one was $220.88 and the other one was $257 even.
There are different locations. We have the sitter that's up at the spring, and then we have a couple out at the Marion Park. So I'll
Okay,
have
I
to-
was just curious because, if they have one up there by the spring and two out at the park, there's only $37 difference. Is that what they charge for an extra?
I'll double check on the exact locations on those invoices.
Okay.
I believe one is for, one of those dollar amounts I believe is for April and one's for May. If you look where it says April and May, I think it's for all three of them. It's listed the tennis courts, the soccer fields in the spring. But I think one is for April and one is for May.
Okay. Okay. And then on page, let me see here, page numbers are missing 4. The telephone system, Ray, for the TV, one's a May bill and one's a June bill, and they're like $600 apart for the same bill. Is that and May has more days in it than June. Is that regulated by the amount of calls, or?
No, is that the, did we get a
I'm
refund?
guessing we got that credit on.
We have a
on one
credit
of them,
coming on one of the bills.
Because the credit was right around 750.
Okay,
I'll double check, Mark, but I think that's what it is.
okay, that's all I have.
And I have no other questions. With that, I need a motion to approve.
Make a motion, we approve manifest 2013-13, the amount of $371,361.47.
Support.
Motion made by Chris, supported by Mark. Roll call.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Gottstein?
Yes.
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Does anyone from the audience wish to address the council on the minutes manifest or any agenda item? If you do, please come up to the podium, state your name and address for the record. You'll have 5 minutes. If not, there'll be a time for comment on any subject at the end of the meeting. Okay, going into communications this evening, we have 8 things on the agenda. The first one is Golf Department Equipment Lease Agreement. Mr. Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. During budget hearings, we talked about some equipment needs and for the golf department. 5 years ago, we entered into a lease agreement, lease to own, for 5 pieces of equipment. That lease agreement is coming up this year, or it has now expired, and we talked about continuing or entering into a new lease agreement for, in this case, it'll be for 3 additional pieces of equipment. It's a greens mower, a fairway mower, and he has a blower that he'd like to pick up. These pieces of equipment are necessary. Our equipment's pretty tired out at the golf course, and it made a huge difference the last time we went and made this infusion. The interest rates are still very attractive, and I did pass out an updated council report. Had some numbers that I pulled that were not correct in the report I gave you over the weekend, but the total payment and interest for the lease agreement is $85,352.40. Of that, $9,039.19 would be interest. That's over a 5-year period. So we're requesting council approval to move forward with this new lease agreement.
Any questions?
Ray, it says lease purchase agreement. It is just a leasing?
No, it's a lease to own, so it's a purchase, and it's,
Okay, that's what I figured it was by
Yeah.
the amount
Well,
that's there.
it's the type of agreements that we have to make as a municipal organization. We can't just go and get a standard loan, you know, to purchase.
Okay.
So,
So it is purchasing.
yes, it's purchasing. We own
Okay, that's what I
flat out
figured,
at the end.
Being the amount that was
Right.
there. Is there any value on the ones as a trade-in that we have out there now? Or what are we planning on doing with them?
I don't know. I haven't really talked to Kurt about that. Typically, they're pretty tired by the time we're done with them. I know that, like in the case of Greensmore's, he will, keep them operational, and he uses them for, say, collars or some other areas. If something happens, it breaks down, he would have a piece of equipment, but from a day-to-day activity, it's not reliable. Just like the fairway mower right now is just not reliable. It's broken down a couple times a week, maybe. So I think that I have to ask him if that's his intent. At this point, we price this out without trading those in. In many cases, we'd be better off to put those in auction, which I think is something that's doable maybe towards the fall.
Yeah, I'd rather not see us hold on to that stuff and
Yeah.
get a collection going out there,
Yeah.
if there's some value to them.
Yeah, if he doesn't need it for a backup, then by all means, we're going to divest ourselves. But again, I know that we've been pretty successful in equipment auctions, rather than just trade-in, because you really, in this type of arena, your trade-in isn't all that much.
Okay.
They have more value
I think
for
they
people.
probably should get a trade-in number so we know
Okay.
roughly what they're worth, even for an auction type situation.
Was there any reason we need to have the four-wheel drive option on the fairway mower?
Chris, I don't know if from an operational standpoint, I can answer that question. I do know that they're up and down hills, and it's something that he had everyone in the crew, including himself, test the equipment. So, you know, from an operational standpoint, that's what they're speccing out. I would have to believe it's because of the terrain and whatnot.
Where are these coming from, Ray? Is this just a vendor? Where are they made? I see some of them, one of them's John Deere.
Yeah,
coming from
Deere.
John Deere,
I imagine Deere is Iowa, isn't it?
Iowa.
I think, or is that Case? I can't tell you right off the top of my head where they actually are manufactured. But both Jacobson and Deere are pretty solid, companies. And that's what he currently operates, you know, out there. He's been pretty consistent back and forth.
Any other questions or comments? If not, I'm looking for a motion.
I'll make a motion that the lease purchase agreement with Wells Fargo through Horst Equipment and VGM Financial Services through John Deere be approved for a total cost not to exceed $85,352.40 over a 5-year period.
Second.
Motion made by Lee, supported by Chris. Roll call.
Mr. Gotstein?
Yes.
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Next on the agenda is approval of traffic control order 13-01. Mr. Anderson.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. At the last meeting, there was a request for us to put together a TCO on Iron Street, one way. That would be for traffic to head southbound on Iron Street at the 600 block. That's what the TCO is for before you this evening. So I don't know if you have any other questions on that. It's pretty straightforward.
Ray, when was that, that used to be one way years ago. Do you remember when it got changed?
I don't remember. We did an audit of our traffic control orders not too long ago, maybe a couple of years ago. This one did not come up. So there wasn't a traffic control order for it in either way. So,
Okay.
so we don't have something on file for traffic control.
Are we going to make sure we get letters out to the people affected, at least that live on that block, or businesses on that block?
Yeah, part of the transition plan, or the plan for moving this forward, is not only, you know, we need to get information out to everybody, plenty of time, but also signage. You know, typically when we make a change, we put larger signs out or some caution signs out, you know, those types of things, so.
Well, that was my question. Have the business owners and the people who live there been contacted already?
This was a direct request off the council, Doc, so I don't know if there's been a whole lot of conversation with the people, you know, in the area. This was something that was brought up at the last meeting pretty strongly that we need to do this. I do know a couple people on that block that we've talked to, you know, just didn't have the chance, and they didn't have a problem with it. They don't go out that direction because of the sight distance. They go the south. So Brian's is the only business on the corner, and
Well, there's the
Swedish passport.
or
passport,
yeah,
I
and
think, but-
they were one that we talked to that didn't seem to have a issue with it.
well, I'd like to make sure that it's okay with Brian, I guess, before we pass it. I don't know if there's any rush in passing it.
Other than what the council asked us at the last meeting. That's why we put it together for you.
I think it's a good idea. I think that's a real dangerous situation there when you're creeping out. And I believe it used to be a one-way
I
probably
do
20
too.
years ago. And I don't understand why it went back the other way.
Probably because it was never passed by action of the council, I'd suspect, if there was no record of it.
Well, it was posted. It was posted years ago.
Yeah, but it was posted, but it was never
Yeah.
made a traffic control ordinance, I suspect. I don't
Yeah.
know, but that's would be my thought. And I certainly have no objection to making it one way. I think it's a good idea, but I would still like to make sure it was okay with Brian. If it's okay with the Swedish passport,
Chris, Lee, what do you think?
I see no problem with it. I snuck out there tonight, and it's bad. But again, I don't know if Chief Schaefer had contacted any of the two businesses there. But I got one little question here, and probably doesn't make a difference, but just to keep things straight, one says 6th Avenue and one says 6th Street.
It's a 600 block of iron.
Of
That's
Iron
what it
Street be
is.
made a one-way street south off US 2 to the intersection of 6th Street
Is that,
versus
Avenue.
6th Avenue.
it should be
Yeah.
6th
Well, that's what it says on here, but here, I'm just making sure all our i's are dotted and t's are crossed on
Yes,
this, that's
the
all.
traffic control orders are on there.
Okay.
Should say Avenue. Chris,
I don't have any problems with it.
Larry, do you see any issues with it? Okay. Do we have a motion?
I'd like to make the motion, we approve the traffic control order 13-01
With the change from
with
street
the
to-
change from street to avenue.
Is there support?
Support.
Motion made by Mark, supported by Lee. Roll call.
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
I'll abstain pending further information.
Mr. Gottstein?
Yes.
Okay, approval, engineering service, local street paving project. Mr. Anderson.
Okay, this is another follow-up from conversations that we've had at the budget hearing regarding street work, street improvement projects, specifically the crush and shape projects that we were talking about. As I brought to council, I did contact Coleman Engineering to see if they had any assistance or what it would cost for their assistance to put together some bid specs and some light engineering type work. They gave us a proposal for $1,000 to help put this together for us. They would help us in some upfront costing, more specific costing than just the per foot that we had in the budget hearings. So I guess then our job would be to put together which areas we would address for the couple $100,000 that we've appropriated this year for this type of work. So,
You gave us this map here. Are we gonna have this map available at least for viewing?
We
in
are.
the lobby?
What I wanted to do was make sure that, I put it in there in a 5-year plan. And I have each year broken out. There's 1 year where, it's designated that we have that water and sewer project, which looks like it'll be a 2015. So I highlighted that area specifically. The others, we just tried to package in relatively similar geographic locations around the community. The years aren't as important as the locations. So once we figure out which areas we want to hit, then we would put that in a final product and have it not only in the lobby, but we put it on the web, we put it, we can send it out. So we definitely want everybody to see what the plan is.
Ray, that spot that you pointed out to me that was over by Loadmaster, that was in the 2013 project, is any of that area in the downtown development?
That is not,
It is not.
that street is not, no.
Is that a truck, so
No,
obviously that's no truck route, obviously,
That's
right?
actually the last block in Norway Street.
Okay,
It's not on the 11th Avenue
okay.
corridor.
Was it discussed, is Coleman going to discuss it as far as thinning down in the center of the streets, very little, and then keeping the intersections like we talked about? Coleman
Right,
gonna
that's
get
all
into
part
that?
of that discussion, move forward
Okay.
with their planning, and we could have that discussion with them in the planning phase of it.
When do you feel we're going to shoot for this project?
Well, I told
with
them we
these
wanted to
10
get this
blocks?
out this summer.
This summer,
Yeah.
okay.
It doesn't, for doing the project, it takes like 2 days, 2 or 3 days to actually do the majority of the work. It doesn't take long at all. I mean, a day to come in and crush and a couple of days to pave, basically what they can pretty much knock it out pretty quickly. It'd take longer for us to get the paperwork together, to get it on
Well,
board.
especially since we have everything clustered together. They don't have to move the equipment around
Right.
and reset up.
I think the biggest issue will be the selection, because I'm sure that's something that, not everybody's gonna be happy with. There'll be reasons for why aren't we doing this or why aren't we doing that? So it's It's really, we can only do so much at a time, and you gotta pick the spots. Unfortunately, some of the worst areas are part of that water and sewer project area, so, you know, we're banking on the 2015 time to get those done. But I did-
What are the chances of getting that, for 2015, that water and sewer project?
Well, I talked to a couple of the RD representatives last week. They were in town, and they stopped by the office, and their fiscal year starts October 1st, so, you know, they were worried I was trying to do it like next year or this year, and, you know, I said, no, if we don't get obligated until the fall or in winter, then it's gonna take the better part of a year to get all the paperwork together with RD. So 2015, they felt was very doable, and they felt pretty comfortable that we're in a good position to move forward.
Now, are we gonna be bucking Iron Mountain and Kingswood for this? Because
It doesn't,
last time around, we were talking about they're gonna change some kind of criteria.
yeah, that's a different program. We don't compete directly with them in this type of situation. I mean, maybe in the long scheme, but RD doesn't look at it that way. So it's kind of a different ballgame in dealing with it.
Looks impressive, you're talking almost 40 blocks.
That's over, yeah, a 5-year period. Yeah.
In the portion on 16th Avenue to the Spring, I talked to you before about redoing that road, and you talked about having it change the designation so we can get a grant for part of that. Has there been any progress?
There hasn't been, and that's working with MDOT, so it's a long slug, you know, to try and get that done. It's redesignating, you know, they would allow us to designate that road without taking something else out, then it would be easier, but right now they're pushing that if we add one, we gotta take one out. And so that's the conversation that's been slowing things up, because we really don't wanna lose anything. I mean, we're having enough trouble as it is, so I've been working on them, we're trying.
Ray, were some of these avenues tie into Highway 8? I know I had talked to you on US 2, and the first maybe 50 feet off of the highway, the state was going to take on. Are they going to take on any of that area for us?
Yeah, they don't
On
have
Highway
US
8.
8, they don't have US 8 down right now as a project. So
Okay, but I mean, if it's bad, they wouldn't put anything in like that?
They typically don't.
Okay,
You know, when we do a street project, you know, we're usually getting out into their right of way because we want to finish it up.
yeah.
And permitting
okay.
and everything, so.
Okay, anything else? If not, I'm looking for a motion.
I make a motion, we approve the engineering service not to exceed $1,000 with Coleman Engineering for the street paving.
Second?
Motion made by Mark, supported by Chris. Roll call.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Menigini?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Gottstein?
Yes.
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
Next is approval, cyber zone network upgrade proposal. Mr. Anderson.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, this is another project that we had talked about during budget hearings. It's our network program. We're currently using Windows, 2003 platform. I've been told that that's coming close to the end of life, and some of the security updates may not be available. It was recommended that we update to a server 2011. We did budget and appropriate for this expense. There is also some expense we put in for upgrading the drives, which was recommended. So the total is $5,512.75. This is through our network administrators, Cyber Zone.
Chris, have you taken a look at this? Any comments,
No, it all looks pretty good, straightforward.
any other questions or comments on it? If not, I'm looking for a motion.
Make a motion that CyberZone be approved to upgrade the city's computer network for a price not to exceed $5,512.75.
Support.
Motion made by Chris, supported by Lee. Roll call.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Gottstein?
Yes.
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes. Next is approval ordinance 406, revision to ordinance 372, property maintenance ordinance. Mr. Anderson.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, this is something that has come before staff for get an upgrade or update to some of the issues we seem to be having lately with property maintenance. What we're finding is that under our current ordinance, under due process, that, you know, the timeframes may be a little more lengthy than what the public would like. So we went and pulled the current ordinance 372, which is an enabling ordinance with the we use the International Property Maintenance Code. Within that 372, ordinance 372, there are some specific localization, I'll call it, inserts, exceptions, some things that we did that, again, localize for our specific situation. The areas that we pulled that we felt needed to be addressed per some of the complaints, under section 106.6, to officially increase the levy that we apply to, if we go in and have to remediate, we contract that service out, and then we apply the bill or send the bill to the owner. We levy a percentage, and we want to increase that percentage to 15%. We don't want to become the contractor or the agent at that point. We want the people to take care of it in themselves. We also, under section 111.1, we have a standard 20-day appeal process, and especially for grass and weeds, this is a very long time period. So we're recommending that that time period, the exception in that section be for grass, be lowered from 20 days down to 7 days. And then under section 302.4, the current height for weeds and grass is 10 inches. We're recommending it be lowered to 6 inches.
Hey, any comments?
Well, I talked to Ray earlier about this. I would also like to add in there garbage in the yard, whether it be mattresses laying out on the boulevard or 2x4s and just junk laying all over the place. Because there seems to be quite a bit of that around town too.
You'd like to lower the
time frame.
yeah, the time frame,
Just
so
like
that
this.
appeal date from 20 to 10 days?
That'd be fine.
Is there any other comments?
The only thing I'd like to say is, boy, I sure wish some of the businesses, the majority of them look nice downtown, but around the corner by the post office, on the side of the post office, I sure wish that some of the businesses would take a little bit of initiative and spray some of their weeds, and for the amount of time it would take. I know the city can't really go over there and spray that kind of stuff, but it would sure clean up the downtown area. It's extremely bad over towards the post office.
On this, I have my own feelings that seem to be different from the council. I feel that going from 10 to 6 is a bit drastic. You can get up from cut to 6 inches in a week if it's a wet, warm week. I think 10 inches right now, with the exception of a few properties, which if it was 6 inches, if it was 10 inches, if it was a foot, it wouldn't matter. They're going to be a problem anyway. I think that the lowering of the days to appeal could be okay, but I think both of those are an overreaction, to a couple of places that they have problems, and an overreaction to one council member's comments. I don't feel it's necessary. I think it's adding greater restriction on the vast majority of the citizens who are already following it, who are already following what the law says. And I don't feel it's necessary, because the grass isn't a problem in the city. There's a couple of ones, and for those ones, it wouldn't matter.
What was the reasoning behind going from 6 inches or 10 inches to 6 inches on the grass line?
When we go out and site on 6 inches or 10 inches, the feeling is that by the time the letters get out, the 6 inches is going to be the 10 inches. And that was some of the internal discussions we had, because we were trying to digest, the complaints or the comments and concerns. And right now, we actually start monitoring, when the complaint comes in, Jim will go out on the complaint and take a look, and if it's not 10 inches, he doesn't write the letter, but the complaint might come in, at something a little bit lower than 10. So the thought was that if it was 6, then by the time the complaint the actually written complaint went out, then it would actually be that 10 inches. That was just nothing magical. That was just the thought behind it. And just trying to address the concern.
I would have gotten written up this weekend, because I'm sure parts of my grass were over 6 inches.
Right. It doesn't, like Jeremy said, it doesn't take long to get to that. And there's some discretion that has to be taken, in that. But, we're just trying to address the concerns that were being put to us.
I have no problem with whatever the height's going to be, whether it's 6 inches or 12 inches. It just, we've got to speed the process up. It's just too slow. After 20 days and the appeal and whatnot, you can have a hayfield. Like I said, last council meeting, you drive into town by Danielson's there, what an impression to give people when they come driving in town on US 8.
And I agree on the time frame. I think it needs to be shortened up to get things resolved a little bit quicker. The height of the grass, I don't know, it's necessary to change that, but
We're at council's, whatever your pleasure is. If we want to keep the 10 inches, we're fine with that.
I have no problem with the 10 inches.
We can do the 10 inches, but tighten up on the time frame.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I make a motion, we stay with the 10 inches and shorten up the time frame like it's suggested.
Then the levy too, and then Lee's motion about junk too.
Yes.
Support.
Motion made by Mark, supported by Lee. Roll call.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Gottstein?
yes.
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Okay, revision of ordinance 407, revision of ordinance 386, the ORV ordinance. Mr. Anderson.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is another response to some issues that have come to our attention as of late. Overall, the ORV ordinance seems to have been a positive for the community. Very few complaints, so we're very happy with how people are complying for the most part. Again, we've reviewed this on an annual basis, and we're very happy to keep it moving forward. However, there is an issue, and I've even talked to our state representatives about this, because there's a push from the UP legislators to open up county roads and other areas outside of the cities for this type of activity. And what we're finding, and here's the problem, what we're finding is that there are people that are taking on-road vehicles, such as Jeeps, small cars, they use it for dune buggies or some other types of off-road use, and they change the configurations for their use, which is fine, but now they're slapping ORV stickers on them, and they're saying, well, this is an ORV, it doesn't need to be plated, and it's going around town that way. That's not the intent, and that, when I mentioned it to our state representatives, they were surprised, but they also agreed that that is not the intent. So from a local standpoint, what we decided to recommend was under the definition of ORV, which is section 3 of ordinance 386. It says what is an ORV and what is not, and we suggest to add vehicle does not include any vehicle originally manufactured for the purpose of on-road use. So we're not telling them not to use it for off-road, but it's not the intent of what we had for driving around town and for avoiding they're doing is they want to avoid the plate costs and the insurance requirements, which is part of state law. So, that is, there's a couple of cases that we've run into, and we just needed to know if you wanted us to try and do some clarification on it, to address it.
What are your feelings on that, Larry?
From what I hear from what Ray was just saying, the purpose of this is to comply with state law. In other words, to make sure that our citizens are not refraining from plating or insuring cars that ought to be insured. If that's the purpose, I think it accomplishes it. Otherwise, is there a danger for these vehicles right now, forgetting the plating requirements of the insurance? I don't know, but certainly to comply with state law is a good reason.
Anybody else? Any other questions or comments? Anybody want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that ordinance 407 be approved and that staff be directed to make publication and notice as charter mandates.
Support.
Motion made by Lee, supported by Mark. Roll call.
Mr. Gottstein?
Yes.
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
The following two items we have on our communications this evening, Resolution 2013-20 and 21, we are going to be addressing and voting on after our executive session later this evening. So at this time, we're going to skip over them and move into does anyone from the audience wish to address the council on any subject? If you do, please come up to the podium, state your name and address for the record. You'll have 5 minutes.
Hi, my name is Bill Aslin, 507 2nd Avenue, Norway. After that meeting 2 weeks ago, I got time to think about the things that were brought up and hearing what other people say too around. I think we were very fortunate to be able to, years ago, have a 4-lane come through here, because there was talk many years ago about bypassing Norway with highways. Would we be into that situation again if we go from 4 lanes to 2 lanes? The proposal that they brought up to me, as you think about it, sounds kind of ridiculous. And many other people feel the same way. It helps our business people here. It helps our manufacturers who do a lot of trucking here. You have a lot of wood industry. Are we going to force them to try to go somewhere else? Because they have a lot of pull around here, and they have a lot of pull in the state legislature. We could be forcing ourselves with a bypass here if these people get together. I mean, sure, it looks pretty to have that, but it's not functional for a city like this, I don't believe. I would be totally against it. I cannot see anything that it's safer. And I hope at your meeting on the 14th you have statistics to show in the last 10 or 15 years how many accidents we've had on this stretch, how many people have been killed, how many people have been injured. I don't think you're going to come up with some very high numbers for the amount of traffic that comes through this town. People from out of the area, I know my wife goes to Weight Watchers in Iron Mountain. The first meeting she went to up there, she sat with people from Iron Mountain and Kingsford. She knows several, and she's been going there quite a while. They said, what's wrong with your people down in Norway turning that road back into an old highway? You know, it's not safer. And you know, they were talking about putting these green zones down the middle. 1 year with salt, they'll all be dead, and you'll have to replant them again anyway.
Well, I can tell you that in his presentation, they had green zones. If this was approved in Norway, there would be no change between the curbs except where the lines are.
In that extra 5 feet, then you can have your ORVs go up the side of the road instead. Is that what you're going to do with that?
I was just letting you know.
That would be in violation of state law, though. They can't go on
I
that.
know.
Our intent wasn't, we weren't
But I
able to
mean,
put it.
it would be as ridiculous having them go up the road as it would be going from 4 the 3 lanes.
I did talk with the highway department, and that 5-foot section, wherever they made those, is not designated bike paths. They call it a shared area, you know, so they stay clear from saying that.
But I think it's hard enough for business places in a little town to keep going the way it is. If we make it harder for them, we'll have a ghost town here. And I agreed with the people that came up from business places and complained about it, because, and the other thing, the statistics, how many children coming from school have been in accidents on the highway, or been hit by a car, or anything like that? There's nothing that appears in the paper, and I'm sure the papers would have it. So I just wanted to bring that up. I think it's ridiculous.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Does anyone else from the public wish to address the council? We will be addressing, on like it was said, on the 15th, we'll be having a public hearing, and we'll be voting on it on that day. And so we'll have a decision one way or the other as to which way we're going to go on the 15th.
Ray, would it be in the state spec where they could actually just widen by Citgo when they're doing this project, just put a turning lane in, like for right turn when you're coming into town from Iron Mountain? Because boy, I think that would really help with the truck traffic that makes that swing down Highway 8.
I had an extended discussion with them when Citgo went in, and they were actually tearing up that whole corner. It's interesting to watch that dynamic. We got a 50-foot radius. Originally, they had like a 30-foot radius there. We were able to get a 50-foot radius. The problem is they don't have enough room. They would have to actually buy property from Stanley Altanisov. And so that seemed to be not in their interest at that time. And it was a slug to try and get what we have. This particular project is just a resurfacing. Obviously, we're going to work on catch basins and other structural elements, but not the curbing lines. So I don't think that they would entertain any change to the curb at that point. But yeah, I had a...
Because now would be the time. I don't think it would
Yeah.
be that extensive if they're going to do the catch basins anyway.
I think the private property issue is probably something more holding up their discussion in that area. I'll bring it up, I'll ask them, but I think that's what they're gonna probably come back with. If the city would like it, I think they told me in 2003, if the city would like it, we could buy it from Stanley. That was kind of the
I mean, maybe
response.
maybe they could swap property in a different area where he needs it,
Yeah.
where they have a little bit of right of way, and do something like that because he has a lot of stations.
Yeah.
You know.
I'll bring it up.
Hey, Mark, any other comments?
Nope, that's all I got.
Chris,
On
anything?
I think, okay. A couple. Knights Kingdom, we had talked, Doc had mentioned about the wood chips up there at some point. I was reading in the recreation minutes that there was some discussion about getting some cleanup done up there. And it's in decent shape, but there's a lack of wood chips. There are some things that are broken up there. I was wondering if we're taking steps to get those repaired.
We are taking steps. We're having difficulty with finding the right type of wood chips.
Another thing I noticed, street signs on the corners of streets for the names. There seems to be a lot missing. Just, I know there's one on my street that's been gone for about 3 years now. There's another one down on Norway Street, and I think 4th Avenue or 5th Avenue, 5th Street. But I don't know if we're taking stock of our street signs, but they seem to be.
I'll send them out. We'll try and locate where they're missing, missing signs.
I know with the wood chips, Chris, they went and we've priced them out, and it came out to be quite expensive. So we're looking now, Kurt's looking to see if we can find anything cheaper. And if we're looking at like ADA wood chips, that would be proper. You're talking having to send a truck to, was it Illinois to get them?
Well, one place was in Illinois. There's another that I've been finding out that's over in central to western Wisconsin, So there's, you know, it's not, they're nothing local that meet that spec.
I mean, I know it's difficult, it's just that, I mean, there's mud spots starting to show up now
Yeah.
out there. I mean, there's literally not much left
Yeah.
of existing wood chips. And I don't want to see it be a safety issue, plus it doesn't look very good either up there. On the road diet, I would appreciate more comments like we have tonight. From what I've been hearing throughout town and people coming up to me, it's about a 50-50 split right now. So the more feedback and the more comments is appreciated, so we can make a decision on that on the 15th. And just like to wish everybody a happy and safe 4th of July.
Mark?
I had talked to somebody about wood chips today, Ray, and I can get with you after the meeting.
Okay.
Because I too am concerned with Chris about the play area over there. But I also am concerned, they did a lot of good planting and stuff, like I stated on the last meeting, downtown area here. And it really looks nice with the new striping and the new parking lots, but boy, I wish we could get some wood chips
Okay.
on the corners here for the 4th, because we have a lot of people down here, and the weeding, it doesn't look like they really weeded the flower beds, they just did some nice planting.
Dr. Hayes?
I'd also like to make some comments on the right sizing, and I've had probably more comments from people than any other topics since I've been on the council. And again, it's about 50-50. People have made the suggestion that we send it out on our utility bills. Has there been any thought to that, or?
There is, but if your intent is to have a vote on the 15th, it's a pretty quick turnaround. I mean, we could put out something, was talking to Trish today, that bills are going out this week,
Probably Monday.
the 8th. So you have basically a week to get it back. I mean, we could put a stuffer in, similar to what we do with our, like when we have a variation where we have to send letters out to everybody within a certain radius of the question, you know, of the area. And it's just a simple, do you support or not? It's just a check, yes or no, and send it back. I mean, we could do that. It's just such a short turnaround.
Well, is there anything that says we have to vote on the 14th? I thought.
Well, that was something that,
Well, I wanted to, one, I want to get this done. I want to have it decided so we can move it forward. But secondly, I did some talking with Dolly Cook up at the county, and the suggestion had been brought up to put it on the ballot.
Well, that's not gonna happen.
Well, the city can't. The city cannot put it on the ballot. However, a resident can, by petition and signature. They would have till August 13th to get that done. So either way, if we decide on the 15th, that would give them a month to try to put it on the ballot. If we wait till into August, we're not giving them time if somebody feels that strongly that they want to do it. We wouldn't give them a chance to get it on this ballot.
Well, I think if we have all the information, again, I think the community is fairly divided on this, and people have made the comment they'd like to have their input, and they don't want to stand up at a meeting, so I think we should do it, and whether we got the time to, I think we can delay the vote, you know, for another meeting if we have to, but I'd like to see it on a mail out with the utility bills if possible.
I guess I don't know who's talking to the rest of the guys on the council, but I've only had 2 people say that they like the idea, and I've probably had 75 people tell me that it's a horrible idea. And
Well, I'm not doubting what the outcome of this survey would be, but I'd just like to see the survey myself. And that can dispel, because I have had, and I made no comments whether I was in for or against it. You've made a number of comments that you're against it, so people are obviously going to reinforce your ideas to you, I would think.
Well, I've had
And
people
I-
come up to
it
me
was
and try to
50-50,
change my
and I haven't
thoughts.
made any comments, so, the survey probably isn't going to change your mind one way or the other, but it possibly could change my mind. So that's why I'd like to see the results of a survey and allow people to at least express if they feel strongly enough about it, they're going to get the results back, and if they don't feel strongly, they're not going to send the results back. So just the number of people we get the results from. And I would feel better if we had that information before we make a decision, and I don't feel obligated to make that decision before our meeting, or before the 15th myself. We have to let the state know by the end of August, so my personal request, and I don't know if we needed a motion on it, would be that we send out a survey with the utility billing.
You don't need to, make a motion to direct us to do that. I mean, we'll do that especially if the vote isn't going on we'll do it even whether the vote goes on the 15th or not. I guess that was just our concern, is that it's just not gonna, it's gonna have to be an awfully quick turnaround. We were gonna, as a minimum, put something in the bill saying that, we were gonna have the meeting on the 15th, but, I mean,
It
we have
may
no
be-
problem putting stuffer in.
It may
That's
do
pretty
the
easy.
same thing, Doc, as if Lisa has it put in a paper that people need to contact their city representatives, and it's on the TV channel, so I mean, I think it's probably gonna be about the same as a survey. Would you think so or not?
Well,
I mean, the
you
people-
still got, people are gonna have to make an effort to contact somebody on the council, and they may not feel comfortable doing that, but they still wanna express their feeling, and so I don't see whether we wouldn't wanna do a survey. In fact, I was surprised when we didn't have one for this month, but, that's why I'm bringing it up tonight.
I don't know. I feel we more owe it just to get it done, get this done. The information out there isn't going to change. The points for it, the points against it aren't going to change. You've been hearing, Chris has been hearing, and Ray's been hearing 50-50. Mark's been hearing mostly negative. I've been hearing mostly negative. I don't know what he's been.
Mostly negative, but 95% of the people who've contacted me and I've talked to, they're all for lowering the speed up by the viaduct. And I said, well, good luck with that. As far as I'm concerned, MDOT is a bureaucracy that we pay their wages and they don't listen to us.
My feeling is get the vote done, because the information's not going to change.
I agree with Jeremy. I feel strongly that way too, Jeremy.
Well, I don't think that it's gonna hurt to do the survey and then give more people a chance to express themselves.
What does everybody else think?
I would like to see a survey, I mean.
Why don't we put the survey in and then on the 15th, you can give us the results that we have at that time. If you feel like you need more samples, then you can decide at that point if you want to hold off.
I mean, it'd be good to advertise in the utility bill for the meeting anyway, so to put a checkbox on there or something for a survey.
Well, stuffer's gonna get more of an attention than just a note
Yeah.
on the bottom of the bill. So that would be the good part about it. We could have all the information on one sheet.
Yeah, I'm not against the survey going out. It's just, I think we should get the vote done and just get it over with.
I agree.
Well, I don't think we need to be in a rush. We don't have to decide till the end of August. That's when the decision has to be made. I don't think you're gonna find anybody gonna rally the forces and try to get something on the ballot.
I mean, it would be nice, we're having the meeting on the 15th to digest that information a little bit. I mean, I know some people already have their minds set on this issue, but there's some of us that are still,
That was what the committee meeting of the whole was for. That was where all the information, you've had 2 weeks already, that'll be a month.
I think it's a big enough subject and topic that it's worth it.
Lee, I guess it's up to you.
I don't see nothing wrong with the survey, but again, I'd like to get it over with, and if the people that feel that strongly for it, like Ray said, they can take out a petition and get it on the ballot. But I'd just soon get it over with and have the vote 2 weeks from now.
Okay. So we'll do the survey and still schedule the vote for the 15th.
I would say that the most important thing that's come out of this whole discussion is that we need some way for people to either go by foot or bike up the south side of the highway. Right now, the businesses all have got that closed off. There's no sidewalk on that side. There's no way of getting up to the churches. There's no way of getting up to the museum except by car. And I'd like to see more than anything is a walking trail or a sidewalk, whatever you want to call it, on that side of the highway so people can get up and down the highway. I think we need, those businesses would do better if they could get up there, and like I said, the churches and the museum need to have access by foot. And so again, more than anything, I think that's what this whole issue points up to, is that there is no way for people to walk from Loft Homes up to the museum without jumping from parking lot to parking lot and tripping yourself on rocks. And whether the path goes in front of the business or the back of the business, I'm not sure, but I'd like the DDA to be involved with that, and possibly the state and the local businesses, because I think they would benefit.
On this, like I mentioned during Mr. Aslin's comment, one thing I've heard from a number of people was because of his presentation that we had last meeting, showing the green space in the middle and the islands, and that they thought that that was part of it. And with ours, I just wanted everybody to, just to be clear, because I even had employees, city employees think that that there's not going to be any change curb to curb. It's still going to be, the pavement will be the same. If it's approved, the lines will be different. That's the only thing changing.
Hey, Ray, is there any possibility, depending on what the cost would be, to get a visual of what the 3-lane would look like in a drawing for people to see?
Conceptual,
Yeah.
I'm sure we could have something.
I mean, just to kind of put down these, you know, the green space issues and stuff like that, so people can actually visualize what it's going to look like. I don't know.
You're not asking to put that in there, are you?
What's that?
You're not?
No, as
All right.
available.
It's gonna look the same, just the line's in a different spot.
Yeah, but I mean, sometimes people like to visualize that and see it and see they're not going to be green space.
Another
and stuff.
thing on that, which talked to some police officers and ex-police officers, with that center lane, left turn only, a lot of people pull out and use that as a merging lane, which creates all kinds of problems. And I've seen that happen, like down at Powers, and I've also talked to, I want to say there's like maybe 5 or 6 different people that said they tried this in Bessemer. And I don't know how long it lasted, but it didn't last very long. A couple of years back, they tried it in Bessemer. And I mean, Bessemer to me is kind of like Norway, size-wise, and going from the east end to the west end. It's kind of long. Actually, it might even be a little bit longer than Norway.
From talking, doing some talking and that about that, in Bessemer, sounded like it was pretty much all political. They had a council that pushed it through without a lot of comment, without a lot of discussion. And then they had a change of council, who then switched it back. And I know they're going through a lot of discussion, from what I understand, a lot of discussion there now about trying to switch it back again.
I think that,
But they're actually having the discussion this time with the community and doing it the right way, like we are.
but I think that Mr. Sharp pointed out, and probably points out that issue, that kind of issue, that, I mean, he was very clear that if you have a split community, that he doesn't recommend actually doing it, because this isn't something that, I mean, this is something that has potential to divide a community, and that's not what it really should be for. So, you know, you have to take that into consideration.
One thing different that we would have that Bessemer did have, Bessemer was able to change it. From the discussions with MDOT, we will not. When the decision's made, that's what it is till they redo the highway again.
Because of the expense.
Well, even if we were willing to pay the expense, they wouldn't come down and change it.
Oh, really?
Well, they want to make sure that it's not flopping back and forth on political reasons, so they're not going to guarantee that it would switch back, and they want to be very clear so that if you have a council election that's purely driven on the issue, and you get people driven out and people brought in, and they vote to change it, they're not going to guarantee that they're going to take that vote and do it. And that's just to try and stave off the political side of it. But again, like Mr. Sharp said, I mean, if it's a split community, if it's 50-50, he didn't recommend moving forward on it because it's not worth dividing a community over.
Yeah, one other question too, Ray. Like there's 17 entrances from Stevenson Street up to the Thirsty Whale, roads going off that highway. Would any of that have to be changed? Would the state come in and say, hey, you can't have all these here, you gotta move it here and move it there, and then who's gonna pay for that?
No, they are not going to mandate that those change. They recognize that as a problem of offset drives. They call it lockup, left turn lockup. Under our access management, countywide access management proposal, as it's an advisory-only proposal, but it also addressed those issues irregardless of 4 lanes or 3 lanes or 5 lanes, that is typically an issue, the number and the offset nature. One of the things that I've pointed out to the DOT is that you shouldn't, I would say you can't, I guess they're the state, but you shouldn't go into the businesses and tell them they have to change and then expect them to pay for it. I mean, you granted them the drives, they paid money to put the drives in, then you're gonna come in and tell them they have to change, on their nickel. So I think that is very problematic on their point, and I don't think that they're interested in going there in any way, shape, or form. They kind of threw it back at me and said, well, if they're interested, is there any local money? And I said, well, don't be putting that on the business. My salvo back was, we did a safety project through MDOT. Would they help the community get a safety project so that, through MDOT, so that they would have monies available to make that change? If we got to that point, they would have this, help us with those discussions. But at this point, there hasn't been any talk with any individual businesses to say you need to, eliminate drives or move your drives around. And that would be a long-term process, I'll tell you.
Dr. Hayes, any other comments?
Oh, that's it.
Lee? The only other comment I have is just kind of reminding people, I know it's summer, there's a lot more people out walking now. Please remember you have to keep your dogs either in a fence or on a leash. I've been seeing a lot of loose dogs lately, and cats as well. I've seen more cats than dogs myself, but cats as well. There's been more and more now, and with more people walking, it could become more of an issue. I'm just asking people to please remember to keep your dogs, your cats inside the house, in a fence, or on a leash. And pick up after. Mary, anything else? Tricia? Larry? None. Ray?
I just want to make a further comment on the animal ordinance. The police department in our ordinance is set up to write tickets. We're not animal control. We don't have the facilities nor the vehicles set up to go and round up cats or dogs, but that is the responsibility of our county animal control. However, if you have complaints, specific complaints, and you know who those complaints are directed to, that's what our ordinance is for, and that's where the police department can step in. We do get a number of calls to say there's a dog running around, but nobody knows whose dog it is. It's just kind of wandering around. I mean, other than chasing them with the car and pushing them in a certain direction, I mean, we really don't have any, we're not animal control, and we don't have that, we don't have the facilities for that. So my recommendation is if you want us to come and address the owner of the animal, we're all set up to do that. But if it's an animal at large, get a hold of the animal control out of the county. And we'll help you do that too, by the way. But we have people that get frustrated when we mention that, and so I just wanted to make sure that everybody was aware of that. And then the only other comment I have is have a happy and safe 4th, and look for a good time here in town with the fireworks and the band and parade, so we look forward to it.
And that's all on the 4th?
All on the 4th.
Starts at what time?
6:30.
Parade is
Parking.
Kitty
parade's
parade at 6 o'clock.
Okay, kiddie parade at 6, regular parade at 6:30. We have the band, we have the fireworks. But remember that we are asking people to not park on the main street prior to the parade, so that's a safety for the kids. And so we're going to go around asking people to move, try and keep the cars off, so that's another request.
We will be going into executive session this evening to discuss union contract negotiations, and there will be action taken, or there may be action taken after it regarding the contracts that we discuss in the meeting. With that, I need a motion to go into executive session.
I'll make a motion, we go into an executive session.
Support.
Motion made by Lee, supported by Mark. Roll call.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Gottstein?
Yes.
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. You're welcome to stay and wait for the results of our...
Can I just say one thing to Rick? Did anybody contact you about those plug-ins out at the park on the far side of not being on?
I saw a complaint come through in the system, so I would assume that it got taken care of.